Yes, you better watch what you say, or you might just find yourself with the lead role.
The Doc Washburn Show, weekday afternoons 4 to 6.
If I don't lie down and take a nap, I'm going to keel over.
Doc Washburn on 101.1. The Answer.
Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc? Can we rock? What's up, Doc?
101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues, where if we talk about something you want to talk about on the radio with us, the number to call is 501-401-1011. I want to say thank you very much to America's Prosperity Arkansas and Salem Media for funding the free showing last night. One of the best movies I've seen in a long time, Young Washington, was fantastic. And Riverdale 10, there on Cantrell. Nathan's Hot Dogs are pretty good too. But the movie was fantastic. And it cost apparently about $20 million to make the movie. They've already made $25 million, and they have announced they're working on a sequel already. Because we're sitting there looking at the movie, and it's like, okay, Young Washington, this is like 20 years before the Revolutionary War, before we declared independence, 1755. And I'm thinking a few minutes into it, it's called Young Washington for a reason. I don't think they're going to get to 1775, 1776, and all that kind of stuff. And the further we get into it, because it was number 3 of the box office opening weekend, last weekend. It was number 3 for the latest figures from boxofficemojo.com for Wednesday. But yeah, it only cost about $20 million to make it. They've already made $25 million. They're working on a sequel. The sequel, the working name for it is 1776. But if you haven't seen it yet, you want to see it. And my wife and I rarely go to the movies. I think this is only the second movie that we have seen in at least a year in a theater. But it was worth it. It's fantastic. And again, we're standing in line waiting at because the AFP in Salem gave us each a free soda, a free bag of popcorn. But I was starving because I hadn't had anything since breakfast. I'm like, oh, Nathan's Hot Dogs. Well, that'd be good. I don't recommend the burgers. Little microwave frozen White Castle. Just, no, I don't care if you have any fond thoughts from your childhood. It's not like that. But the Nathan's Hot Dogs were fantastic. So anyway, you got that. We have a statement on behalf of the Kirk family from the Erica Kirk X account from like 40 minutes ago. Statement on behalf of the Kirk family. The conclusion of the preliminary hearing marks an important step forward in the pursuit of justice for Charlie. Our family is grateful for the prayers, support, and kindness that has been extended to us, especially through these unimaginably painful and emotionally demanding proceedings. As difficult as these last few days have been, it brings our family comfort to know that the world has witnessed the overwhelming evidence of what occurred to Charlie that day. Nothing will ever undo the loss of our beloved Charlie. As this case moves into its next phase, we pray that truth will continue to be heard through a process that is fair, transparent, and grounded in the facts. Now, remember, the family, and at one point today, Erica and Charlie's mother were hugging and crying. Sorry. The family has been pushing for transparency. The prosecution has been pushing to get all the evidence out there. It's the defense that has been objecting to each and every piece of evidence. And perhaps we can figure out why by listening to what Donald Trump Jr. said. Now, he was there in the front row for these preliminary hearings. And because he had been friends with Charlie for over 10 years when Charlie was so horribly taken from us. Let's go to Donald Trump Jr. on Tyler Robinson. Cut 1, please.
There was so much noise out there. You didn't really realize what was or what wasn't. I mean, there were so many things that, as far as people were concerned, were the gospel that, strangely enough, haven't even been brought up in the case, probably because they weren't. And so I stayed silent because I want actual justice for Charlie. The way to honor his legacy is to actually find who did this. And honestly, based on everything that I saw in that courtroom, it's very clear to me that Tyler Robinson did this.
Okay. So let's hear his detailing of everything he saw in that courtroom, which led him to this conclusion. Donald Trump Jr. on Tyler Robinson. Cut 2, please.
A kid that drove 4.5 hours away from where he lived to visit a university campus that he did not go to. He visited the campus 4 times. You can see that very clearly on the video. One of those times at 12:30 at night, you see him change clothes from wearing shorts and a t-shirt to wearing long pants and baggy things, going up to a rooftop where they showed us literal pictures of indentations where someone would be lying down prone to shoot a rifle. You have a screwdriver that likely could have been used to take apart the gun because it had the DNA of the shooter and his boyfriend on it, but mostly Tyler Robinson. And so it's pretty clear to me that A, he was there, he was scoping it out. He then went back, put on clothes that could perhaps hide a rifle or a taken down rifle. If you took the stock and the barreled action apart, you could conceal that in your pants much more easily. He's walking with this strange limp. And then the second the shot's fired, they see him jumping off the roof. The limp is gone and he's holding a long, dark object like a rifle wrapped up in something.
Wow. That's a lot. You know, I got to tell you something. I have a Facebook friend, and I don't know most of my Facebook friends because since I'm on the radio, I've got, you know, a whole bunch of Facebook friends that, you know, I don't know them. I might have met them at some point, but I don't know them. Anyway, so I got a Facebook friend who was asking her Facebook friends if they thought that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk. She said, I just want a one-word answer, yes or no. If you go beyond one word, I'll delete your comment. Okay. So I wasn't getting involved in something like that. But I counted, and 23 of the people who responded to her said yes, they did believe that Tyler Robinson shot and killed Charlie Kirk. 24 of the people, her Facebook friends, responded no. And that's sad. That's sad. You know, you have the First Amendment right to completely ignore all of the evidence that's presented. No big deal. What you believe or don't believe doesn't in any way affect what will happen in that courtroom, just so you know. Okay, let's go to Donald Trump Jr. Cut 3, please.
Between that, the DNA evidence, minor details, like he turned himself in, and I believe his parents identified him in the video. To me, it puts so much of this at rest. Then more importantly, listening to the defense essentially try to eliminate any kind of evidence to go in there. I mean, it's almost like, well, that would be really prejudicial. It's like, yeah, because you have him on video doing exactly what everyone believes him to have done. Yeah, that's prejudicial because it's very clear to me that he is guilty. There
you go. What are you going to do with that? Well, people like Candace Owens are just crashing. Megyn Kelly, who has always defended Candace Owens and will not criticize anything she says or does, has come out and said, for all the conspiracy theorists who don't think that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk, put up or shut up, while she continues to defend Candace Owens. Oh, man. You know, one of the things about Megyn Kelly, it's amazing Fox News has world-class producers because for years they made her look intelligent. And then once she got off Fox News, she's off in La La Land. She's saying things like she prays to Charlie Kirk constantly. And she said she was about to pray the rosary, as virtually all Catholics do. As virtually all Christians do. Now, whether you believe in praying the rosary or not praying the rosary, because Catholics think it's a good idea, Protestants don't think it's a good idea. The Catholics know the Protestants don't pray the rosary, and the Protestants know the Catholics do pray the rosary, but Megyn Kelly thinks all Christians do. Did I mention she's kind of low IQ? Yeah, okay. All right. More coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. .1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. If we're talking about something you want to talk about, number to call is 501-401-1011. Andrew Colvett, spokesman for Turning Point USA, executive producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, is out there just a few minutes ago. New a filing from Kirk family representative Jeffrey Nyman seeks a prompt determination of probable cause. Quote, we are approaching the 1-year anniversary of Charlie's assassination. 10 months have passed since the defendant's arrest, and the 5-day preliminary hearing is now concluded. The defendant is entitled to a fair trial, and he must receive one. But he is not entitled to cause undue delay in the criminal justice process. The family is likewise entitled to a speedy resolution. Utah Code 77-38-7 provides that the victim of a crime has the right to a speedy disposition of the charges, free from unwarranted delay caused by or at the behest of the defendant. The family trusts this court to ensure the case proceeds without further delay. We respectfully urge this court to issue its probable cause determination no later than September 1, 2026. Well, makes sense to me. Now, I've got to share something with you from an account on X that I follow called Data Republican, which is closing in on 1 million followers. And I know there are people with more than that. They're nuts, but I'm just telling you. And she's responding to some vile stuff that Candace Owens said yesterday. She said, hello, Mrs. Owens. You told millions of people that Tyler Robinson wasn't even there, that you felt confident stating that Tyler Robinson did not kill or murder Charlie Kirk. But he was on camera. Phone on the Losi rooftop at 12:22, shot at 12:23:28, DNA on the screwdriver at 30 quintillion to 1, DNA on the rifle at 1.7 octillion to 1. He told his family what he did. His parents helped him surrender. He texted his roommate, quote, I'm sorry, unquote. He engraved, hey, fascist, catch on the ammunition a month before he used it. Candace Owens, you said police didn't even question Lance Twiggs. He was interviewed twice, FBI the morning after, joint state-federal team 7 months later, his own attorney, voluntary phone surrender. You laughed when you said it, though, that he wasn't even questioned by the police. You told Sean Ryan's podcast a shaped charge killed Charlie, that PETN explosive was in his microphone. But the medical examiner says he was killed by a gunshot wound, and bullet fragments were recovered from his body. A 30-06 Mauser with Robinson's DNA was found in the woods. Neither side, not prosecution, not defense, has mentioned explosives, not once in 4 days. This is yesterday. Now it would be not once in 5 days. You said the shot came from below. The Losi building is above the amphitheater. You called Erica Kirk a, quote, clinical psychopath, unquote, to an audience of millions. You said the assassination was, quote, an occult ritual, unquote. You said Charlie was, quote, sitting in a pentagram, unquote. You told people that Israel killed him because he refused Netanyahu. You made over 100 episodes. You built a franchise on a dead man's name. And the hardest fact of all, Tyler Robinson's own defense lawyers, the people whose entire career is on the line to get him acquitted, have refused to make a single one of your arguments, not one. They're challenging DNA methodology. They're doing their jobs. You were doing something else entirely. And then she says, Charlie Kirk changed my life. He platformed my work when nobody knew who I was. He had my back when I was doxxed. I was the 10,000th most important person in the world, and I will never be able to repay him. So I did what I know how to do. I read every transcript. I watched every hour of testimony. I cataloged your claims, and I held them up against what was said under oath. And every single one of your claims failed. I don't know why you did this. I'm not going to speculate on your motives, because that would make me exactly the kind of analyst I've spent my career refusing to be. But I know what you did. You told people confident lies about a dead man's murder, and millions of them believed you, and some of them turned that belief into threats against his widow. The trial will continue, and every day of sworn testimony in the preliminary hearing is another day your words get tested against reality, under oath, on the record, where it counts. I'll be here for all of it, because just as Charlie defended me, I will do what little I can to defend his legacy and Turning Point USA and Mrs. Erica Kirk from evil. Her next tweet says, Candace's supporters are saying she didn't actually say these things, but here are the receipts, most from a single Sean Ryan interview. I've transcribed every episode on YouTube, and there's more. And so she's got video compilation there of over 2 minutes long. And she says, I'm voiceless. Literally, I've spent 44 years getting used to not being heard, and then somehow many people started listening. And she gave Charlie credit for that a little bit earlier. She says, that kind of reach isn't something I earned. It was given to me, and not so I could be popular. It was given to me to say what needed to be said when it mattered. And I believe that's what she's doing. And I thought it was so eloquent that I needed to share it on my show. But Candace was out there saying footage of Tyler Robinson turning himself into police does not exist. I mean, it does. They showed it. And Blake Neff from the Charlie Kirk Show just cooked Candace Owens using her own words. It's amazing. Yes, she is crashing and burning. Couldn't happen to a nicer gal. More coming up. New threat from Iran on President Trump. Details next. 101.1, The Answer. 101.1, The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. We're talking about something you want to talk about. Number to call is 501-401-1011. I got to tell you what the Wall Street Journal had in their hard copy edition this morning's paper. Iran hatched fresh plot to kill Trump, Israel told U.S. Yeah, this is President Trump. They got a picture of him speaking to the press on the new Air Force One. Yeah, I found out that, I think I already knew this. Whatever plane President Trump gets on literally becomes Air Force One. That's the way they work it. So anyway, having said all that, President Trump did warn Iran that he's got like a dead man switch. In other words, if anything happens to him, they're going to get hit so hard. But the problem is, I would think, once the president dies, the vice president's sworn right in. And I don't trust J.D. Vance as far as I can throw Chris Christie and a slightly chunkier cousin simultaneously. Their hurricane force winds. And J.D. Vance, the guy who told us that the mainstream media was reporting misinformation about the memorandum of understanding, and then a week later we find out, no, they had it exactly right. Isn't J.D. Vance the guy that told us some of the most hardcore Islamic radicals and the Iranian regime told him, maybe we've been doing this wrong for 47 years. Maybe we should just, do 180 and be nice. It would be nice to think that President Trump had really professional, competent protection for Secret Service, but there have been too many examples showing that he doesn't. So pray for our president. Anyway, Wall Street Journal says Israel shared new intelligence with the U.S. that it said indicated a fresh Iranian plan to kill President Trump. According to people familiar with the matter, finding that would mark an escalation in the war between Washington and Iran. For years, Iran has vowed openly to retaliate against President Trump for the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, who was the top general in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in the president's first term. I think he took him out. I believe he took him out in 2020. And couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I think anybody with any sense was really, really happy that he took him out. But anyway, be that as it may, they still are really upset about that. And as far as I'm concerned, not too bad. Years before anybody came up with the FAFO thing, that we can't say what it stands for because there's a bad word in it. Years before that, decades before that, perhaps even generations before that, we had a saying here in the South: don't start none, won't be none. Okay. How long have Muslims been killing the rest of us? 13, 14 centuries, something like that. Why did our government create the U.S. Marines? The Barbary pirates? From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Did you ever think about what that means? You look it up. Anyway, the Israeli embassy in Washington declined to comment. Iran's mission to the United Nations didn't respond to a request from the Wall Street Journal for comment. The White House referred the Wall Street Journal to comments the president made on Wednesday. On Wednesday, Trump alluded to threats to his life when speaking to reporters in Ankara, Turkey. He said, they want to take out the U.S. leader, me. I'm on every list. I saw this morning, I'm on every single one of their lists. And so far, I guess I've been a little lucky. But that maybe doesn't last very long. Relations between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has splintered in recent weeks, according to the Wall Street Journal, as their interests diverged over continuing the Iran war. Really, because I heard Trump say just a couple of days ago, we need to just go ahead and finish this up. But again, the Wall Street Journal does what the Wall Street Journal does. Netanyahu has advocated for keeping up attacks on Iran and accomplishing more war aims. Trump has sought a way out of the conflict, citing concerns it could tank the global economy. The U.S. struck a fragile ceasefire with Iran last month. Well, look, here's the deal. We keep on hearing stuff like, hey, we're going to finish this up. I'm tired of putting up with this. And then we keep on hearing stuff like, well, that'll show them. That'll get them back to the negotiating table. Jim Banks, U.S. Senator, Republican, Indiana, was saying last night, oh, I tell you what, President Trump's teaching them a lesson. They're going to be back at the negotiating table before you know it. No. No need for that. You can't negotiate with terrorists. Been hearing that all our lives. You can't negotiate with terrorists. You need to finish these guys up. But that's just me. What do I know? In the meantime, Fox News, Morgan Phillips reporting, a senior official in New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's administration planned to meet with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations before the State Department reportedly intervened and the meeting was canceled. See, Mamdani is saying, oh, I didn't know about it. We made sure that didn't happen, and we're going to, make sure that doesn't happen again. Fox News reporting the State Department stopped it. New York City Commissioner Anna Maria Archia, leader of the Mamdani administration's Office of International Affairs, was scheduled to meet with Iran's permanent representative to the United Nations, Amir Saeed Iravani, Tuesday, according to the City Journal. A U.S. official familiar with the matter confirmed to Fox News Digital that the meeting had been scheduled. The reported intervention marks the second known instance in recent weeks in which the Trump administration has stepped over the Mamdani administration's contacts with foreign leaders, highlighting growing federal scrutiny of New York City's international outreach under its new socialist mayor. See, they're Fox News, so they'll say new socialist mayor, but they sure won't say new Muslim mayor. They don't want to criticize Islam. Anyway, the Office for International Affairs of New York City coordinates closely with the State Department on many diplomatic matters because of New York City's role as host to the United Nations. Once the State Department became aware of the planned meeting, it was called off, and State Department officials met with Mamdani officials to clarify acceptable conduct, according to a State Department official speaking to the City Journal. The Iranian mission declined to comment on the meeting to Fox News Digital. During a press conference today, Mamdani said, that meeting did not take place, it will not take place, and I didn't know about it until there was a press inquiry regarding it. When he was pressed on whether he supported such a meeting, Mayor Mamdani said, I've said that meeting will not be taking place. Thank you all very much. Yeah, he doesn't want to get his fellow jihadists upset. A State Department official told Fox News Digital in a statement, quote, "We appreciate the mayor understanding the value of diplomacy and for his decision to cancel this meeting. It is unconscionable that a New York City official would even consider meeting with the Iranian ambassador to the UN, a man who consistently works to undermine U.S. interests and whitewash his regime's crimes against the United States, our allies, and Iran's own citizens." Well, Zohran Mamdani consistently works to undermine U.S. interests. So what do you expect? Yeah, this is, well, Fox News reminds us again, Trump repeatedly says he's number one on Iran's kill list. And Israel recently shared intelligence with President Trump about the new Iranian plot to assassinate him. Is there any particular reason we didn't denaturalize and deport Zohran Mamdani? You got a guy who grew up, born and raised in Uganda, and he's only been here for 8 years, and he does a July 4th address explaining to us what America is and what America should be and what America shouldn't be and how awful we all are. And he's only been here for 8 years. Denaturalize and deport. That's what I believe in. Ought to do it with Ilhan Omar, too. It's ridiculous. All right, 501-401-1011 if you want to talk to us about what we're talking about. The Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station. 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. We're talking about something you want to talk about. Number to call, 501-401-1011. Do you remember that judge in Wisconsin that got brought up on charges for letting the illegal alien out the back door, conspiring against ICE? Well, I wish she had seen justice. The great Mike Davis just dropped this over on Fox News a little bit ago, Article 3 Project. Disgraced former Milwaukee judge Hannah Dugan resigned from the bench after getting charged with obstruction of justice for distracting ICE agents and helping an illegal alien charged with domestic abuse escape through a back door to avoid arrest. A federal jury found her guilty of obstruction of justice, and she faced a recommended prison sentence of 15 to 21 months in prison with a 60-month maximum. Shamefully, former Democrat politician and Clinton-appointed judge Lynn Edelman gave her no jail time. Former Judge Dugan's conduct and the woefully lenient sentence for it defiles the judiciary and shows that some people are indeed above the law. Eduardo Flores Ruiz blatantly disregarded our laws by entering our country illegally. He was deported and should have gotten the message to stay away from our nation. Instead, he came back again illegally and began wreaking havoc in Milwaukee. On April 18th, 2025, he had a scheduled appearance in Judge Dugan's courtroom for 3 domestic violence charges. So ICE agents were aware of Flores Ruiz's expected appearance, and they went to arrest him at the Milwaukee County Courthouse pursuant to an administrative warrant. That's when Judge Dugan grossly and illegally abused her power, causing chaos and putting those agents' lives in danger in the interest of her radical left ideology. The agents informed, y'all remember the story? The agents informed Judge Dugan's courtroom deputy why they were there and politely waited for Flores Ruiz in a public hallway. When informed of the impending arrest, Judge Dugan inexcusably left her courtroom to confront the agents. She claimed that an administrative warrant was insufficient for an arrest, a legally absurd assertion coming from a judge. She ordered agents to leave the building, a command she had no authority to issue. Finally, she directed the agents to the office of the chief judge. Unbeknownst to the agents, this was Judge Dugan's way of diverting their attention so she could put her plan into effect. Once the agents left, Judge Dugan immediately addressed Flores Ruiz's case off the record and scheduled a status conference, even informing the defendant's attorney that the accused domestic abuser could appear via Zoom. Then, Judge Dugan directed Flores Ruiz and his attorney to leave through a side door inaccessible to the public. The judge even led them out herself so the illegal alien did not have to pass through a door opening to a public hallway. Judge Dugan ensured that Flores Ruiz reached a stairwell leading out of the building and to the street so he could escape easily. Within minutes, the ICE agents determined what had occurred, along with FBI agents. They gave chase and eventually arrested Flores Ruiz. This chaotic scene unfolded in front of moving city traffic in the downpour of rain in Milwaukee. Any agent could have been killed had a car skidded in the poor conditions. The risk was eminently foreseeable, but Judge Dugan flagrantly disregarded it in the name of protecting an illegal alien and accused domestic abuser. The Justice Department properly sought and obtained an indictment against Judge Dugan for her unforgivable conduct. Dugan could have accepted responsibility for what she had done and humbly apologized. Instead, She laughably asserted a defense of judicial immunity for her plainly illegal conduct. Pitifully and predictably, dozens of former judges signed on to a brief supporting Dugan's legally baseless claim. These judicial lightweights included the pathetic J. Michael Luttig, a once respected judge who descended into irrelevance when President George W. Bush correctly passed him over for multiple Supreme Court vacancies. Judges have never been entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution for official conduct. The Supreme Court made it clear in Dennis versus Sparks, 1980, that judges face prosecution the same as ordinary citizens. Judge Lynn Edelman correctly rejected Judge Dugan's feeble immunity argument. At trial, the evidence against Judge Dugan was overwhelming, and a jury of her peers made her a convicted felon. Judges consult sentencing guidelines, which serve as a starting point in calculating a defendant's sentence. Factors judges consider include specific deterrence, general deterrence, and protecting the public from the defendant. Judge Dugan's sentencing range fell between 15 and 21 months imprisonment. She had at one point in mitigation, her lack of a criminal record. Her unconscionable abuse of power and the public trust, however, overwhelmingly outweighed this mitigation. Even more egregiously, Dugan endangered the lives of federal agents who were trying to do their jobs safely because this radical in a robe disagreed with the law they were enforcing. She showed no remorse, wasting valuable resources by asserting a frivolous defense. In short, Dugan's conduct, both during her crime and after it, warranted incarceration. Even though she thankfully is no longer a judge, her imprisonment would have sent a deterrent signal to other rogue judges tempted to follow her shameful example. Judge Edelman, formerly a Democrat politician in Wisconsin, didn't see it that way. Dugan now walks free, a mere $5,000 lighter, after her flagrant violation of her judicial oath and the law. Many nonviolent defendants from January 6th served far more time in custody. When volunteering to lead illegal alien and accused domestic abuser Flores Ruiz through the side door, Dugan told her court reporter not to do it. Per trial testimony, Dugan said, "I'll do it. I'll get the heat." That statement illustrates that Dugan knew full well her conduct was unlawful. She was wrong, however. She did not get much heat for it. Instead, thanks to a fellow leftist judge, she received a slap on the wrist. That is the great Mike Davis Article 3 project, a guy who clerked for Justice Gorsuch, also was lead counsel for Chuck Grassley as head of the Judiciary Committee, lead counsel for nominations. He helped him get Trump's 3 nominees onto the U.S. Supreme Court and a whole bunch of lower federal court judges done. Mike Davis at Fox News, article entitled One leftist Wisconsin judge lets fellow traveler off with wrist slap. Two-tier justice system. That's what I'm talking about. And you know it. More coming up after the top of the hour, 5 o'clock news. As the Doc Washburn Show continues, you have Little Rock's premier talk station and a guy who just can't look at the clock. It is 101.1 The Answer. Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll just do it this way. All right. 101.1 The Answer. The Doc Washburn Show continues. Where if we're talking about something that you want to get into the conversation on the radio, the number to call is 501 401 1011. Now, I want to talk about what Kayleigh McEnany was saying over on Fox. Of course, former White House press secretary. And a lot of people don't know Harvard Law. So she's actually an attorney, not just a former White House press secretary who smiles and looks pretty and talks on Fox News. And she went nuclear on Utah Judge Tony Graff delaying his decision on whether Tyler Robinson goes to trial in Charlie Kirk's murder until September. She said, and I quote, "This is mind-blowing. Judge Tony Graff yesterday cited Article 1, Section 28 of the Utah Constitution, and that allows Erica Kirk and family to be treated with respect, with dignity, to be free from harassment, to be informed and present at the trial. But I would love for him to cite Utah Code 773-872. You know what that gives Erica Kirk and her family? The right to a speedy disposition of the charges, free from unwarranted delay caused by or at the behest of the family. Pardon me. The right to a speedy disposition of the charges, free from unwarranted delay caused by or at the behest of the defendant. Where is Judge Tony Graff's affinity for that statute? Because you're not giving that to Erica Kirk. You're not giving that to the family. Yes, the defendant has Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial, a litany of other rights, but the fact that this is not going to be decided until September, there's no decision on probable cause? Probable cause is such a low bar. To your point, ballistic evidence, DNA evidence, there's a texted conviction. I think she meant confession there. Probably a typo. There's a texted confession. There's that roommate saying he confessed. There's a litany of evidence. And she doesn't get a probable cause decision until September, nearly a year after Charlie was killed. You can't make a decision on the plea of Tyler Robinson. We're not even going to get his plea until a year when Charlie Kirk was assassinated. We're not going to know if this goes to trial until a year from when Charlie was assassinated. This is inexcusable. I'm angry about it. On average in this country, a defendant enters a plea 24 to 48 hours after an arrest. Tyler Robinson has been arrested for nearly a year. And the fact that we would not know this until a year, Utah might as well rip up your statute about the speedy disposition of the victim because Erica Kirk is being denied that, and I'm quite angry about it. That is Kayleigh McEnany over on Fox. And I think she's right. It's mind-blowing. It's outrageous to me. Now, on an unrelated note, I think it would behoove me to remind you how close Minnesota Governor Tim Walz came to being vice president. And a whole big old committee of Democrat politicians decided that he was the best choice for Kamala Harris running mate after Joe Biden won the Democrat primary and then for all the world to see was in full-blown dementia during the one debate he had with Trump. And so they took it away from him and just appointed Kamala Harris, something never been done before. You know how many votes she got in the primaries? 0. Anyway, but they're like, hey, this Minnesota governor guy, yeah, he'll appeal to the guys. until, of course, he got the nomination and started waltzing onto campaign stages, kind of with a mincing step, kind of sashaying around. Anyway, he's a really bad guy, this Tim Walz. And wait till you hear what he did and what Secretary of State Marco Rubio did about it. Marco Rubio on Tim Walz and illegals. Cut one, please. I mean, if we have it. If not, should I go on and do something else? Or? Oh, I was saying Marco Rubio on Tim Walz and illegals. Cut one. That's what I was asking for.
Just weeks ago, a convicted sex offender and a foreign national was shielded from deportation by the governor of Minnesota. Laotian national Tu Li Vang was convicted of repeatedly sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl in the state of Minnesota. He even tried to pay his victim for her silence, and he called his heinous crimes a minor thing. Just days before this foreign sex offender was scheduled to be deported, Tim Walz, the governor, issued him a pardon, setting him free to once again endanger the children of America.
That guy almost became vice president, the Tim Walz guy. But that is today's Democrat Party. Remember now, they got a law passed in California and signed into law by Gavin Newsom out there that if you intentionally give AIDS to somebody, it's not a felony anymore. And that guys up to 24 years old can have sex with guys down to 14 years old, and there's no law against it. That's your Democrat Party. Your Democrat Party couldn't have cared less that Graham Plattner used to beat up his girlfriends, had a Nazi tattoo, said that military members of the U.S. deserved to get killed over in Afghanistan. Didn't care about any of that until the poll numbers started going down. I'm just saying. So, yeah, Tim Walz gives a pardon to this guy from Laos who repeatedly sexually assaulted a 10-year-old girl. Marco Rubio getting ready to tell you what he did about it. Let's go with cut two, please.
This week, I revoked his legal status in the United States, and as a result, federal agents took him into custody, and as of today, he has been removed from the United States. Because of our action, this foreign criminal will never pose a threat to any American ever again. Americans must never be forced by their elected leaders to live alongside foreign sex criminals who have no right to begin with to reside in our country. This administration will always stand with the American people and defend them from violent criminals.
Let me just tell you something. Let me just remind you about something. Whenever a Republican says or does anything a little bit off or a little bit, wait a minute, why are you telling me this? It's a floating break, right? It doesn't matter if I take it at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Wait a minute, are you telling me we can't take the commercial break until 20 after? We're not allowed to? When did this start? So it won't let us go to a break until 20 after. Is that what you're telling me? What does it mean they'll be off kilter? Well, I was going to do the show, but you're telling me something that breaks to 20, and I don't understand what that means because I always just take it whenever I take it. What was I talking about? Oh, yes. Whenever a Republican does or says anything embarrassing, a little bit off kilter, you got mainstream media reporters all over the country insisting that elected Republican politicians condemn whatever it was some guy halfway across the country said. Do you have a comment on what so-and-so said about this? Why do they never do it about Democrats? I guarantee you that nobody is going to ask radical, left-wing, Arkansan, pro-transgender Hallie Schaffner, the Democrat nominee for U.S. Senate against Tom Cotton, what she thinks about Minnesota Governor Tim Walz pardoning a guy who sexually abused a 10-year-old girl over and over again so he can't get deported back to Laos. Nobody's going to ask anybody about that. They're not going to ask Hallie Schaffner, who's running against Tom Cotton. They're not going to ask Fred Lowe, who's running against Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They're not going to ask Chris Jones, who's running against French Hill. No, they won't. Why? Because they all believe in taking one for the team. They don't care how many people in this country get killed by illegal aliens. They don't care that alleged rapist Graham Plattner's name is still on the ballot in Maine. None of that matters. Well, the former girlfriend who's accusing him of rape said that she hesitated about coming forward with it because she agrees with him politically. You know, and she would hate for Republican U.S. Senator Susan Collins to be reelected out of Maine to Washington, D.C. But she finally said, well, you know, people should know. She said people should know that he raped me. You know, I guess so. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and spill the beans. And she did to the New York Times. But the New York Times is like, no, we're not going to print that because, you know, we are also going to continue to take one for the team. We are also down with the struggle, and we don't want to be responsible for making it more difficult for the Democrats to take back the U.S. Senate. And that's how it works. You know, you can tell me all day long how upset you are with a particular elected Republican. And I will remind you that the time to take care of that is in the primary. That if you're going to vote for a Democrat in November, you must want for our country to be destroyed. You must want for our country to be turned into Zimbabwe. Well, I have children and grandchildren, and I don't want to see that happen. So, no. If you want to talk about it, 501-401-1011 is the number to call. Go ahead and make the case on why you should, quote, send a message, unquote, to the rhinos in D.C. and or Little Rock. I'll listen patiently. I'm not going to agree with you, but anyway. All right, more coming up as the Doc Washer Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. We're talking about something you want to talk about. Number to call is 501-401-1011. Trey Yingst, Fox News this morning, said President Trump says the ceasefire with Iran is over. Quote, the Islamic Republic of Iran has asked us to continue talks. We have agreed to do so, but the United States has stated to them in no uncertain terms that the ceasefire is over, unquote. Well, it's a real shame, in my humble opinion, and you're entitled to it. It is a crying shame that the President of the United States has agreed to once again send his negotiators to the table, the homicidal maniacs that anyone and everyone knows you cannot negotiate with. So why? Nobody has been able to give us a good reason. Nobody has been able to give us a good reason. There's not one. If you can tell me, 501-401-1011. People with a lot higher IQ than I have been saying ever since the ceasefire began, this isn't going to work. And again, the memorandum of understanding gave away the store to them. J.D. Vance kept on lying about it. No, they don't get any money at all until they prove they can behave. But the sanctions were relieved almost immediately, and they were allowed to start selling oil almost immediately. So let me just do this. Wall Street Journal, the fight over Hormuz boils down to one poorly worded clause in Trump's deal. President Trump's memorandum of understanding with Iran was supposed to open the Strait of Hormuz and relieve the pressure on the global economy. Instead, it set off a test of wills that has exploded into violence twice in the past 2 weeks. The root of the dispute is paragraph 5, which says Iran will make arrangements to restore shipping through the strategic waterway and then work with Oman to determine how to administer it in the future. But it also includes an Iranian pledge to ensure safe passage and remove military obstacles such as mines. Now, Trump administration officials saw that clause as unlocking the strait, the main accomplishment of the president's deal. However, Iranian hardliners have used it to push a maximalist interpretation that gives the Islamic Republic exclusive control over the waterway as a key source of leverage. See, in other words, the Islamic mind doesn't believe in cooperating with infidels. That's us, the kafir. But I digress. Wall Street Journal says the U.S. and its Arab Gulf allies don't want Iranian hegemony over Hormuz, the lifeline for much of the world's oil and gas supply. The language of the deal has left the two sides fighting over that point rather than making progress on a final agreement on Tehran's nuclear program. Well, that's never going to happen anyway. Michael Horowitz, an Israeli geopolitical analyst, said, the gap in interpretation is wide, baked into the deal, and not exactly surprising. Washington has tried to convince Tehran that compliance would be more profitable, but this framing misses the point. Iran's behavior isn't driven by financial motives, but by security concerns and bargaining leverage. It's a power dynamic. I wonder who doesn't understand that on our side. 3 weeks after Trump signed the preliminary deal to wind down the war at Versailles, France, traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is still stunted. Crossings fell to 25 on Wednesday. amid the U.S. and Iranian exchanges of fire from 49 the day before, according to ship tracking company Kepler. More than 100 ships crossed each day before the war. A U.S. official familiar with negotiations said paragraph 5 has been problematic and that the U.S. and Iran are on different planets when it comes to interpreting the deal. Notably, the paragraph says nothing about the U.S. making arrangements for the safe passage of vessels, which Iran has seized on to attack ships that use a U.S. coordinated route, according to this official. The official, a separate U.S. official said, quote, President Trump made his feelings very clear yesterday in no uncertain terms. Iran's attacks on these innocent vessels are acts of terrorism. The United States is still committed to finding a resolution, and technical talks continue. Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon, unquote. Iran's lead negotiator in the talks with the U.S., Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, quoted the clause and arguing on social media that Iran controls the strait. Now, this guy, remember, is directly responsible for, Americans being murdered in the past. But anyway, he said the Strait of Hormuz will only open with Iranian arrangements, not American threats. So here's the text with analysis by the Wall Street Journal. Paragraph 5. Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. We told you it wasn't going to work. Wall Street Journal analysis, the text makes Iran responsible for opening the strait, which Tehran is leveraging to try to exclude competing efforts to shepherd ship traffic. It also only prevents Iran from charging fees for 60 days. This isn't going to work, y'all. And I will tell you why. And it's a much bigger deal than the Strait of Hormuz. I'll tell you why at the bottom of the hour news, if in fact we do go to the bottom of the hour news. Doc Washburn Show 101.1, The Answer. 101.1 The Answer. Doc Washburn Show continues. If we're talking about something you want to get into the conversation, number to call is 501-401-1011. Big thank you, by the way. Big thank you to Americans Prosperity Arkansas and Salem Media for putting on the free showing last night of Young Washington at the Riverdale VIP 10 Cinemas on Cantrell. One of the best movies I've seen in a long time. It was only the second time my wife and I have even been to a movie theater in the last year or two. And it was fantastic. Young Washington is the third biggest billing movie right now in America. Opening weekend last weekend, and the most recent figures from Wednesday. It cost $20 million to make it. They've already recouped $25 million, and they're working on a sequel. If you haven't seen Young Washington, you're definitely going to want to check it out. Very impressed. A couple of well-known actors in it, Kelsey Grammer and Ben Kingsley. Guy who played Gandhi all those years ago. Didn't he get the Best Actor Academy Award back before Hollywood made it impossible to win Academy Awards unless you put people from this group and that group and all this kind of stuff in it? That's why I'm not going to see the Odyssey. You forget about that. Anyway, I said before the break, I get something about the whole Iran situation. It's a lot bigger than just Strait of Hormuz. So this is a guy from Ayman Dean, and he wrote a book called 9 Lives, My Time as an MI6 Spy Inside Al-Qaeda. Imagine being able somehow, by the grace of God, to get away with that. And this is something he said back on May 20th. You know, after we announced that we were going to back off and try peace. Remember all that? Yeah, I'm going to go to the negotiating table because, you know, we don't really want a whole lot of folks dying needlessly. Anybody remember all that? Well, anyway, so shortly after that decision was made, May 20th, here's what the guy said. There is a growing blind spot in Washington's understanding of Iran. One, Israelis and Gulf Arabs grasp more clearly than many in the Trump camp or Europe. This is not just about missiles or sanctions, it's about belief. The modest narrative. Now, that's not M-O-D-E-S-T. That's M-A-H-D-I-S-T. That's people who believe in the Mahdi. People believe in the 12th Imam. The guy who's been at the bottom of a well for 1,000 years and just waiting to come out and set things straight. They believe in this. Anyway, so this is not just about missiles or sanctions. It's about belief. The modest narrative gaining influence within the IRGC, Iran's hardliners and supporters of Mojtaba Khamenei. Many inside the regime now believe Iran survived recent crises not because of diplomacy or restraint, but because of the unseen hands of the Mahdi protecting Iran's divine mission. And that's the real danger. For years, the West dismissed Iran's apocalyptic rhetoric as symbolic. But in times of war and survival, such beliefs can morph into fanatical operational devotion. Within IRGC circles, now remember, IRGC, what's this stand for? Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Within IRGC circles, Mojtaba Khamenei is increasingly linked to the Khorasani figure from Shiite prophecy, a leader from eastern Iran who survives foreign attacks amid regional chaos. Hardliners also cast Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the guy in charge of the Houthis in Yemen, as the Yemeni destined to align with this Khorasani, Mojtaba Khamenei, in a wider regional struggle. None of this proves prophecy, of course, but movements driven by apocalyptic conviction don't need their beliefs to be true to become dangerous. They only need followers willing to act on those beliefs. And that is the risk now facing the region. If Tehran emerges bruised but intact, convinced America ultimately backed down, the result will not be moderation. It will be vindication of the so-called unseen protective hands of the Mahdi narrative. The IRGC will see survival as divine endorsement. Every survived strike and every Western hesitation will reinforce the belief that the regime is protected because it serves a sacred mission. That is how political movements become messianic movements. The Middle East has seen this before. Al-Qaeda mythologized Osama bin Laden's survival for so many years until we took him out. ISIS turned al-Baghdadi into an apocalyptic symbol. In both cases, symbolism mattered as much as military strength. Once a movement becomes eschatological, in other words, dealing with the end times, deterrence weakens. Sacrifice becomes sacred, and endless conflict becomes a path to redemption. And that is why unfinished wars carry risks. If America retreats ambiguously, while Iran grows more convinced of its divine mission, the result may not be a weaker Iran, but a more radicalized and dangerous revolutionary axis stretching across the region and seeking nuclear weapons, not for deterrent, but for intimidation. The danger is not simply that the Islamic Republic survives. The danger is that it becomes the Allah/Mahdi. The danger is that it believes that Allah/Mahdi ensured its survival. And once states begin viewing geopolitics as divine destiny, the region enters a far darker phase. Yeah, that's, it kind of makes you wish, doesn't it, that there was somebody on Trump's negotiating team that understood that these people don't have the same motivations and are not susceptible to the same incentives that we have and that we are, because they're not. I mean, the art of the deal, that's great, man. If you're trying to make a real estate deal with somebody, you are the man. And Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff are the men. You guys know what you're doing. But if you're trying to negotiate with people who believe that it would behoove them to bring chaos on the earth so the 12th Imam, this Messiah figure, can come out of the bottom of a well, I don't think it takes the same skills to negotiate with people like that as it does to negotiate with people when you're trying to get a real estate deal done. the Iranian regime is not, they're not swayed by the thought that they can make a lot of money. That's just not what motivates them. All right, Tom Homan. Tom Homan out there, the border czar, out there on Fox with Will Cain just a little bit ago, saying that Democrat attorneys general are quietly downgrading illegal alien crimes to block deportations. You heard about this? Border czar Tom Homan made an accusation that deserves far more attention than it's getting. Democrat attorneys general and district attorneys, he says, are deliberately softening criminal charges against illegal aliens, specifically to keep them off the deportation track. He didn't point somewhere abstract. He pointed to his own backyard. Quote, "You saw the attorney general in Virginia. Here where I live, he's been called before Congress for treating illegal aliens better on criminal convictions and criminal cases than American citizens," unquote. Homan didn't stop at that diagnosis. He named the motive. Quote, "The reason he's doing that is to make it hard to deport these people," unquote. Virginia's Attorney General Jay Jones has already picked multiple fights with Trump's DOJ this year, suing to preserve in-state tuition for illegal immigrant students and defending Virginia's law shielding federal agents from being unmasked during ICE operations. Border czar Tom Homan's specific claim about a congressional summons is his own account, not an independently confirmed record, but the underlying pattern of soft treatment coming out of that office is not in dispute. Homan's closing line was a warning dressed up as a civics lesson. Quote, "Elections matter, and we need to put the right people in place to enforce law," unquote. Which takes us back to a story we had earlier on the show about Marco Rubio saying, look, there was a guy from Laos who was here illegally, and he sexually abused a 10-year-old girl multiple times. And Minnesota Governor, lame duck, Tim Walz, pardoned him. And guess what? We're deporting him anyway. Just thought you'd want to know. More coming up as the Doc Washburn Show continues on Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer, Doc Washburn Show continues. We're talking about something that you want to get into the conversation. The number to call is 501-401-1011. Anybody remember Miranda Devine? Miranda Devine with the New York Post. She is the reporter that broke the story over the New York Post about Hunter Biden's laptop, the one that he left at the computer repair store in Wilmington, Delaware. I mean, left it for a year, didn't want it back, and had evidence of all kinds of crimes on it. Anyway, so when Miranda Devine says something, I pay attention. Not that she's perfect, not that she can't ever make a mistake about anything, but that she's credible and worth listening to. So Miranda Devine was on Fox, and she had some thoughts about the ongoing, well, it went on for a week, Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing to determine if there's enough probable cause for him to be tried for murder in a courthouse in Provo, Utah. Here is Miranda Devine.
It just looks like an open and shut case. There is just mountains of evidence. There's the note. There's Lance Twiggs now. We're seeing him for the first time on screen, verifying all of that. I mean, it's astonishing to me that he hasn't been charged with anything. I think the good thing that's come out of this preliminary hearing so far is that it really makes the conspiracy theorists look like idiots, because all of their cockamamie ideas are being shot down one by one. And I think maybe that's partly the reason why so much voluminous evidence is being brought forward at this time.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be the situation. And so much did come out. Now, early in the show, we played audio from Donald Trump Jr. just going through one thing after another. All of this this evidence presented. Not to mention that Tyler Robinson kept on confessing to people what he had done. So it is shocking, disappointing, frustrating that the judge isn't even going to make a decision until sometime in September. So an attorney representing the Kirk family has said, hey, man, would you mind just going and doing this on September 1st? Because Utah state law says that it's, the family of the victim deserves for things to kind of move along, you know. So a little bit earlier today, a guy named Jack Posobiec, who claimed to have been a very close friend Charlie Kirk, but as far as I can tell, has not stood up for Erica and criticized Candace Owens, who's been trying to make Erica Kirk's life a living hell. Jack Posobiec outside the courthouse detailed video of Tyler Robinson in today's preliminary hearing of allegedly taking the shot that killed Charlie Kirk. Judge Tony Graff expected to rule on whether probable cause exists for trial following written briefs with oral arguments set for September 1st. Sarah Fields, great investigative reporter who has been doing such a great job from the courthouse in Provo, Utah. Before that, did a great job of the Carmelo Anthony murder trial over in Frisco, Texas. She says surveillance video was shown during the preliminary hearing that captured the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk from the rooftop. Judge Graff ruled that the enhanced version of the footage could be played in court, so Charlie's family could view it. It was not broadcasted by the media. As the video was shown, Charlie's widow, Erica Kirk, and his mother embraced each other in tears. Moments later, his parents quietly left the courtroom. It's horrifying what was done to this young man. And I'll just say something. I saw a clip the other day of Dave Chappelle saying that people were comparing Charlie Kirk to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said, no, Charlie Kirk was no MLK. I'm like, well, I guess you got a point there. He was not a serial adulterer. He did not plagiarize, as far as I can tell, anything in the papers he did in college. So, yeah, he was no MLK. Better man than MLK, I'll say. Better man. But that's a whole nother show, isn't it? Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the 72 hours. I should say, I guess maybe 70 hours between now and when, God willing, we start up the show again at 4:06 on Monday. Every once in a while, people ask me on a Friday evening, so what do you plan on talking about Monday? And I'm like, I don't have any idea. All depends upon what happens between now and Monday. We try to talk about breaking news. So, you been hearing about these flock cameras? Flock Safety CEO says it's terroristic to want to know where they put their spy cameras. Yeah, the Blaze.com of all places has the quote from Garrett Langley of Flock. You're terrorists for wanting to know. Yeah, they get the info from the interview he did with Forbes. I don't know. Maybe we need more freedom. Call me crazy. I've been called worse. And they deserved it. Okay, the great Dave Ellswick and Val Emmons, Monday morning at 7:06 right here. I'll see you at 4:06 Monday afternoon, God willing. Doc Washburn, Little Rock's premier talk station, 101.1, The Answer.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Full vowel mode. Tonight's Hey everyone, welcome to the show.